for the sake of a better expression right now, call a deeply trusted source within myself. Call it intuition, wisdom, soul, whatever, psyche, but it's I think it's the source of my own wisdom that I trust. Not just wishful thinking, not just something that I think maybe I'm just, coming up with that, but something that really, it gives me a message, and you know what, yeah, I can rely on that. And so sometimes it takes a journey to get to that place, and also to get the message, because often there's, the pages of literature and music written about, please tell me, oh Lord, please give me your word, and there's no word. And so there is this deep process of trying to find that meaning, and perhaps maybe even finding that. And so I kind of decided to associate that music on a deeper level, on kind of a little bit of a mythological level, with that process. So it's, at first, I'm announcing what not exactly what I want to find, but like where I want to go. And then I'm going there. I'm going on a journey, internal journey, or maybe I'm going into the mountains and stay there for months and wait for signs. And then perhaps maybe there is an answer, and perhaps I may be even trying to make it my own. So that's another way to look at that. And then one day, I have a choir here in the church, right? And I'm observing that one choir member just like lit up. Not that it was an unpleasant person before, but there was different light. That's interesting. I'm just noticing, I don't know much. And then I get contacted by that person about a consultation, music for a wedding. I thought, oh, that makes sense. She's in love. And so we have a consultation, we choose music, and there's wedding, and we choose good music. And there is a conversation, where do we have this ceremony? Do we have it here? Or do we need to go to a different place? There is a chancel, and usually couples go up in the chancel, but the groom needs a ramp because he's in a wheelchair. And there is no ramp here. And then I'm thinking, well, that's a weird conversation in the Unitarian Church of all places, but also I don't know many churches that actually provide a ramp that easily. Yeah, like talk about dignity and autonomy and sovereignty and everything. So we have the wedding here, and it was beautiful. And then the next message I received, the next message in that story, the way it unfolded for me, I'm receiving that the sanctuary will be closed for a couple of months and we'll be building a ramp. So, great, I love it. And I'm talking to a professional friend of mine, telling him, oh, the sanctuary will be closed because they're building a ramp. And he's laughing back at me and says, yeah, they've been building a ramp 30 years ago when I was the organist here. I said, no, they're building a ramp because the woman in love made it possible because she had money. And so that was December 2019, and the ramp was built during the pandemic. And we're still not in person. Nobody is really using the ramp still, and perhaps they will. But then, preparing for the recital, that piece came back to me. The parts of that story, combination of the wedding march and then the not painful, but the questioning, and then questions that come, what do we do, how we be with that? And then there is some answer arising. But then in summer this year, the groom who became a husband passed away. And he is not the one to use that ramp. Someone else is going to use that. And it is a testament to this whole deep picture of reclaiming one's own sovereignty, or reclaiming one's own sense of dignity, not in the sense that I didn't feel dignified before and now I do, but in the sense of I've always been, I am worthy and there's nothing wrong with me. And that sense of dignity have always been there. It was always available. And so the piece turned out to me into almost like a mythological picture. And I'm very grateful to these people. I don't want, to pry on someone else's stories, but, as all creators, authors, or performers, we all use what happens in life, how it affects us in some way. And right now, that piece has so many different meanings for me. And one of them is that first a statement of joy and celebration, and then questioning, and perhaps maybe even refusing the answer, refusing the circumstances, yielding, and maybe even, it's a dramatic part when it happens, and maybe even not wanting whatever is happening, and yet coming back to the sense of one's own wholeness in the way that was available. So that's the way I looked at that particular piece. And if anything in music makes it sing for you that way, use it. Have permission. Give yourself the permission. Mendelssohn wrote it when, he might have been, I don't know, a 35-year-old man. It was a long time ago. There is appreciation and respect for his effort, of course, but the piece lives on, whether he intended it or not. And I hope he intended it, but he also probably at the time would have understood that it is so open to interpretation by anyone else that, of course, there's certain algorithm that I need to follow, and yet filling it with my own meaning took even me, give myself a permission to make it my own, and to make that piece sing for me in that mythological way, the way it happened before. So that's what I want to begin the recital with. The first movement is 3 sections, and you'll hear the repeat. It is not exact repeat, of course, it is slightly different because we never come to the same stream back. And then the second movement, it's sort of like an epilogue. The story kind of ends with the end of the first movement. And the second movement is just a very, very nice, could be a voice from above, could be a voice from below, from inside, doesn't matter. But just be prepared that it is a very quiet ending. So don't get spooked when it's time to upload and you don't know whether or not you should. So I'll get to music now. so much happened, so much loss too. And I wanted, if there is a need, I wanted the time to process that too, for myself and for you. And still, those pieces, like they're major pieces and they have nice titles, like joyful titles. But that wasn't the spur of a moment, actually. What brought up the first one, especially The Great Day, was a social media post that I saw a friend of mine posted, titled Another Great Day. And she wrote about remembering her mother who was dying, struggling with cancer for a couple of years, and having a diary all this time, recording her physical state and emotional state. And each entry in this diary, diary, each entry in this diary began with, "It was a good day." There were only 2 days when something like test results didn't show good message or something. There were only twice entries that didn't begin with this phrase. Still, they began with something like "it was okay," and then it would end that, but by the end of the day, and then she would describe an experience of her own personal transformation, and it was still fine. And she was still deeply connected to the source of trust that she clearly had over the course of her life. So that post, that not necessarily finding good in their circumstances, it wasn't about that. I think it was probably about staying connected to one's wholeness. And you know, there are different ways of losing connection to one's wholeness. And some cultures suffered more than others. In particular, people from African American heritage clearly, had good reasons to not staying connected to that. However, these 3 pieces, they're actually from people who liked doing that. And 2 of them are still alive and working today. And when the slides show up, they will be a little bit description of who they are or who they were in relationship to Florence B. Price. One of them, Uzi Brown Jr., he has a lot of short interviews posted on YouTube, or somebody for him posted it for him, and he speaks about music clearly having healing effect, and I think he even uses probably something either magic or like there was a word, I unfortunately don't have the quote right now, but he's talking about that music should, and it does, and it should have this effect on people. So he wrote Triumphal March of Heritage in the 90s. The conversation about Black dignity or whatever wasn't as strong as it is today. Black Panther movie did not exist then, but that's what he wrote, reclaiming his own heritage. I don't know how far he went, what exact part of his heritage he was claiming. As an implant to this country, I'm questioning for myself, how far do I want to go? How much of Russia do I have in me? How much of it do I want to be connected with? Do I want to be connected with it? And how far do I want to go there? So I don't know answers to those questions, but I just take it as an invitation for myself, reclaiming the part that is capable of reclaiming my own heritage. Maybe it's even a heritage, of unicorns and elves and fairies, or maybe it's a heritage of, look at the land and ask it to adopt you. Or it can be a different type of relationship to the heritage, but the fact is that we shouldn't stay orphaned. We should be connected to this life. We should be connected to the existence on a larger scale. We should be connected to nature and to land we live on, and not only to our families, immediate families and immediate circles of friends, but we should, at least once in a while, experience our own niche in this universe, if it's possible. And so that particular piece was bringing that for me. Along with that, of course, first and foremost, it's a personal story by an African-American composer that he wrote, some 40 years ago or 30 years ago. Um, and then Florence Beatrice Price is just one of those composers who was reportedly known, well known during her life, but then her music was forgotten. So I'm glad that it's coming back. It's one of the most famous pieces. Like, I'm not yet playing larger works like concertos or symphonies or whatever else. She wrote quite a bit. But I love this piece. Somehow it also, along with conversation, how joy can have an underlying sense of reclaiming one's own wholeness through anything, in particular through losses. Somehow that piece, Adoration, reminds me that. Like, there's something that we've lost, and yet something that we still can claim for ourselves. So whatever it is for you, again, use it at your own discretion and judgment. Please don't follow any invitations that don't sound authentic to you, and make it your own experience. wanted to follow this by 3 short pieces by Bach. It's an experiment. They were never meant to be played on the organ. He had fun though. He did whatever he wanted, and in that time they were repurposing their own and each other's music so freely. So I just thought, why not? The first one, especially though, I played it as a young adult, and you know, that's one of the pieces from Walter Perry Clavier where the teacher might tell you, you should imagine organ when playing chords. And I tried, and you know, there's still a way to play a chord on the piano, and it's somehow either flat or it just doesn't sound grand enough. But here you just, you know, put your fingers on keys and here it is. So I just thought, yeah, that's the one I should really try to play on the organ. And then the other two, the next one, it was written for a lute anyway, so it's an experiment, as I said. And the last one, I once told the story that I was the very first like serious Bach piece that I learned in my life. Must have been age 9, 10. I struggled with it quite a bit. So it was very nice to come back to it right now and get a different sense of it. And we can do a similar thing, just 3 pieces, no applause. So the conclusive piece is by a French composer, end of 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. Charles-Marie Widor wrote 10 symphonies. And this is one of the earliest ones. So when he wrote his earliest symphonies, he didn't actually mean them symphonies in the sense that Beethoven meant symphonies. Like a little similar to what Mendelssohn called sonata, wasn't really sonata per se. So it's in the same sense. The whole symphony, he called them collections. And he treated them more as suites. And I picked 3 parts, the most important parts for my purposes from out of the symphony. The first one and the closing 2, the 5th and the 6th parts. And so the first one, you will, like, believe me, it follows its title. I sometimes feel drowsy because it circles around and around. And when you practice, you spend hours to make the notes that are written there and the keys that you have to push at the right times, to make it your own and to let your muscle memory to connect with that. And so, like, there are moments when you just don't, what is he doing? What am I doing here? And at other times, when there is a different meaning to that, like, that's life. That's exactly what's happening. I read that he supposedly modulated in all keys in that part. I haven't checked it. I didn't have the time to prove this theory. I believe it, because the modulations are very short. He never really stays in one particular key for long, but it's just constant. I don't want to use too much of a professional language here, but there is a desire to go somewhere, there's a resolution, and then the resolution becomes the new desire to go somewhere. And it just goes on and on for 4 pages, maybe like for the duration of some 4 minutes. But that's what I'm finding in it, more and more, that is how life goes. There's an ebb and flow, and sometimes you don't always get the big picture. You don't always know what you're doing, but it just, the change is the only constant in this existence, it seems. And so that's the first movement. And then the second one, also similarly to Mendelssohn, is using an old melody to create a wonderfully dramatical picture around that single Gregorian chant melody on Salvardina. It's used as a solo in manuals, and then parts of it are used in pedal, but the whole piece is just a dramatic expression of romantic picture of, again, perhaps longing, finding, not finding. When it begins, it opens with movements that are kind of intertwined with one another. One is a little hectic and is sort of resembling the rhythm of life as it is. And then there is one more like Gregorian chant and antiphonal choir in the church, or monks in the monastery. Like you go into a busy street and suddenly you hear something out of the dynamics somewhere, and it stops you. So there goes this kind of duality there. And then the final section of that, it's a prayer, really. And one could, like, when it gets loud, sometimes I hear it as triumphant, sometimes I feel it as dramatic, sometimes I hear it as demanding, and at other times celebrating. So again, do whatever you want with that, and just like take it in and let it affect you and see where it leads you. And as romantic music is meant to, it goes very high up and then comes very quickly down to a very quiet sound at the end of that movement. And then we'll just end with the finale, that is a toccata, a precursor to more famous toccata by Widor that I'm not going to play today, but some other time. So this one is also loud and fast, and that will be the end. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Just wanted to say very, very shortly, when people donated the money to install the organ in their church, they made one stipulation: organ music always sounds for free, and it does. So whatever donation you did will help to maintain that wonderful thing, but it's free, so don't feel obliged. Thank you very much for coming. Stay healthy. And I'm wishing all of you a very ordinary, cozy holiday season.